Shalom, brothers and sisters, and once again, this is Brother Brandon Judah, and on today, we're going to bring you another edition concerning Solid Foundation International Ministries. That's Solid Foundation International Ministries, S.F.I.M. Be sure to log in on YouTube, check out my videos. You can also follow me on Twitter, Brandon Judah 1. You can also follow me on Twitter and check me out on Facebook, brothers and sisters. But before we get into the lesson, let's give all praises and glorification and honor to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Yahweh being the Heavenly Father, who the world calls God, Yahushai being the Son of the Heavenly Father, who the world calls Jesus Christ. Double honors to the elders and the apostles, and salutations to the Achaim, the brothers that's preaching this truth and sincerity. So let's get straight into the lesson. And today's topic is going to be talking about leprosy. Okay, leprosy of the Holy Bible. What is leprosy? We're going to go into it. We're going to get in, get out. We're going to show you, brothers and sisters, what is leprosy according to the Holy Bible, and we're going to prove that the ancient Israelites were black people. Let's get it. Now we're going into the Holy Bible, King James, through the spirit and power of Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai. Okay? And we're going to Leviticus 13th chapter. Okay? To deal with this case, which is called leprosy. Alright. So let's look at Leviticus 13th chapter. Go to chapter 13. And as you can see, it's titled A Holy People. And it says leprosy. Let me adjust the camera so you can see it. It says a holy people, leprosy. Let's start with Leviticus 13 and 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying, so this is the Most High speaking through Moses and Aaron to the children of Israel, which is located in Sinai. Now Sinai is located in northeast Africa. Let's not forget that. Sinai is a part of Africa, brothers and sisters, if you didn't know that. Okay? It is located in northeast Africa. Alright? Some people know Sinai, or some people say Sinai is part of the Middle East, but however, like I said, the Middle East is also known as Africa. The Middle East is a part of Africa as well, because when you look into the history, when you examine history, before they built the Suez Canal, the Middle East was claimed as Africa as well. It's only after the Suez Canal was built, then they kind of segregated the Middle East from Africa. But before the Suez Canal was built, the Middle East is primarily Africa, okay? So we're talking about Moses and Aaron that speaking to the children of Israel concerning these leprosy laws, which they were speaking to the children of Israel in Sinai. Now let's keep in mind, we told you that we're going to also prove that the ancient Israelites were black people. So when you think of white people, you don't think of Africa, Southeast Africa, Sinai. You don't think of that when you think of white people. When you think of the so-called white man, you think of Greece, Europe, things in that nature. Okay, let's just keep that in mind, because we're going to prove that children of Israel were black people, and we're going to show you more about the leprosy laws. So let's return to Leviticus 13, and we'll pick off at verse 3. Verse 2. When a man shall have in the skin of his flesh a rising, a scab, or a bright spot, and it be in the skin of his flesh like the plague of leprosy, then he shall be brought unto Aaron the priest, or into one of his sons, the priest. This dealing with Leviticus 13 and 2 says basically when a certain Israelite man or woman, if they have in their flesh a rising or a scab, like a rising, like put you in a mind of a hernia, a rising, or it may be a scab. It says, and if it be a bright spot in the skin, let's keep that in mind. That bright spot also lets you see that the Israelites were colored people. If there be a bright spot in the skin of his flesh, sort of like relating to the plague of leprosy, then these particular man or woman is to be brought before the sons of Aaron, which is the high priest. Let's go to Leviticus 13 verse 3. It says, and the priest shall look on the plague in the skin of the flesh, and when the hair in the plague is turned white, and the plague in the sight be deeper than the skin of his flesh, it is the plague of leprosy. And the priest shall look on him and pronounce him unclean. So having the case of leprosy wasn't a good thing, brothers and sisters. Having a case of leprosy was to be unclean, okay? You was unclean to be caught with a case of leprosy, to be caught with a rise in the scab in your flesh, and if your skin, if there was a bright spot on your skin, you was brought before the priest, and he would examine you, and if you didn't meet the qualifications, you was pronounced with leprosy, and you was unclean, okay? All right? Now, let's keep in mind, dealing with Leviticus 13 and 3, it says, the priest shall look on the plague in the skin of the flesh, and when the hair in the plague is turned white, when the hair in the plague is turned white, and the plague in the sight be deeper than the skin of his flesh, it is the plague of leprosy. Why does it say when the hair in the plague is turned white? Because you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans who are the true Israelites, your hair is upon your arms, your legs, your torso, whatever the case may be, the hairs upon your head, your beards. You know, basically, primarily the blacks, Hispanics, and Native American has dark texture hair, has blackish, nice black, you know, grade of hair, like such as my beard. You see, and you can even examine my arms, brothers and sisters. You can see on my arms, you can see that black texture hair on my arms. Leviticus 13:3 says, when the hair in the plague is turned white and is deeper than the skin of his flesh, it's the plague of leprosy. So anytime an Israelite brother or sister, you know, if their hair turned white and it was the plague, basically if their hair turned white and it was deeper than the skin of his flesh, it was pronounced as leprosy. And you can see right here, so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native American has black texture hair. Just imagine if my hair turned white. You see what I'm saying? So that's just another clue, pursuing Exodus 13:3, to let you see that the Israelites were colored people. All right? We're going to keep going on, brothers and sisters, okay? Leviticus 13:4. If the bright spot be white in the skin of his flesh, listen now, if the bright spot be white in the skin of his flesh, that also lets you see that the ancient Israelites were black people. If the bright spot be white in the skin of his flesh, and in the sight be not deeper than the skin, and the hair thereof be not turned white, then the priest shall shut him up. That the priest shall shut up him that had the plague 7 days. So I'm gonna elaborate on that. If the bright spot basically be white in the skin of his flesh, that lets you see that the Israelites were colored people. So you can see, pursuing Leviticus 13 and verse 4, if there be a bright spot be white in the skin, that lets you see that the ancient Israelites were colored people, okay? Because when you examine my skin right here, you can see, pursuing Leviticus 13:4, it says if the bright spot be white in the skin. So a colored man, if he had a bright spot that was white in his skin, in his flesh, okay, it tells you that basically he shall be set up 7 days. I'm going to show you another illustration, brothers and sisters, okay? Show you another. You see, right here, pursuant to Leviticus 13 and verse 4, if the bright spot be white in the skin of his flesh, it tells you that he shall be set up 7 days, okay? Right here, you see that? If a bright spot be white, that's what I'm talking about. This is a perfect illustration. If the bright spot be white in his skin, that's what the Israelites was dealing with in the ancient times, dealing with leprosy, okay? I just want you to see the illustration. If the bright spot be white. Now, leprosy today, brothers and sisters, is known as vitiligo, also known as leprosy. So they won't say leprosy today, the doctor would probably use this term as here, vitiligo. In biblical times, see Leviticus 13, that's the chapter we're in. In biblical times, modern day vitiligo was called leprosy, was known as leprosy. Some may say albinism too. So you see vitiligo, that's how you would pronounce this. It's a disorder in which white patches of skin appear on different parts. Okay. Vitiligo is a disorder in which white patches of skin appear on different parts of the body. This happens because the cells that makes pigment color in the skin are destroyed. It says these cells are called melanocytes. Okay, melanocytes produce melanin in your skin, brothers and sisters. And anytime the skin, those cells that makes the pigment color in your skin, if those skin cells are destroyed, okay, these cells which are called melanocytes, if they are destroyed, it creates leprosy, small white patches in the skin of a colored person. Okay, it says vitiligo can also affect the mucous membranes such as the tissue inside the mouth and nose and eyes. So I'm just giving you a perfect illustration dealing with Leviticus 13, dealing with leprosy, pursuing the verse 4. Let's go back to that. If the bright spot be white in the skin of his flesh, and his sight be not deeper than the skin, and the hair thereof be not turned white, then the priest shall shut him up basically 7 days. Verse 5, and the priest shall look on him the 7th day, and behold, if the plague in his sight be at a stay, and the plague spread not in the skin, then the priest shall shut him up 7 days more. Because you could not be around the camp, brothers and sisters, with diagnosed with leprosy. Okay, so the so-called white man has that. But we're gonna go further into that, because the so-called white man, you know, he has a leprosy today because he doesn't have melanin within his flesh, within his skin. Okay, he has very little melanin in his skin, and we went over the article concerning leprosy that is today known as vitiligo. Okay, and it says vitiligo is a disorder which white patches appear in your skin, appears in the skin. And this happens because the cells that makes the pigment, that makes the coloration of your skin, it says they are destroyed. And these cells which cause melanocytes, they are the ones that makes coloration in your skin, brothers and sisters. So dark brothers and sisters, you might have, because the nation of Israel, Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, we are different shades of brown, all right? From a lighter brown to a darker brown. And the reason why we are different shades of brown is because those melanocytes that produce the melanin in your skin to give you that dark pigmentation. Now, however, if you begin to lose those melanocytes, if those melanocytes are destroyed in your skin, it creates vitiligo, man. It creates leprosy, all right? And that's what the children of Israel dealt with back in ancient times. And that's what some of you colored people, such as Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans, which are the Israelites, some of you are still dealing with that today. I know a sister that stays around the corner from me, and she has modern day vitiligo, known as leprosy. Okay, so let's go further on, brothers and sisters. Now, let's go back into the article. This is a footnote I took. It says melanin. What is that? Melanin is the substance in the body that produces a chemical that turns the skin from brown to black. Melanin helps to protect the skin from the harmful ultraviolet rays of the sun. Ultraviolet rays from the sun damages the skin, causing skin cancer. The word Caucasian comes from Caucasus, which means cave dweller. Because you so-called white people, you dwelt in the Caucasus Mountains during the Byzantine Empire, okay? It says the Caucasian people, however, are introduced to skin cancer more than any other people on the planet. because their skin has a small portion of melanin. Why? Because the so-called white man, like I said, he doesn't have sufficient amount of melanocytes in his skin to produce coloration. And basically all his melanocytes are destroyed. He have very little melanocytes within his pigment, and that's why melanin is the substance in the body that produces chemicals that turns the skin from brown to black. Melanin helps to protect the skin. So the so-called white man has very little melanin in his flesh. So that's why he's more vulnerable to getting a higher chance of skin cancer. That's why the so-called white man, which is the Edomites, the Bible describes, that's why when they go out to trips, they might go out to camps, park adventures, they might go out to picnic, might go to the beach, might go to the mountain climbing. They might go on safaris, whatever the case may be. When the so-called white man goes out, they have to apply large amounts of sunscreen to the skin. Some may call it sunscreen, some may call it skin cream, ultraviolet UV cream, whatever the situation may be, whatever cream. They apply large amounts of cream to their flesh. Why? Because he has very little melanin. He doesn't have sufficient amount of melanocytes within his flesh. So they are put, the so-called white man, the so-called Europeans are at a higher chance of catching skin cancer. Okay, because why? They don't have a sufficient amount of melanocytes. And we're gonna go more into it, but you can see that nature even hates the so-called white man. Nature hates the so-called white people. They cannot assimilate to nature like you Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans. You have a sufficient amount of melanocytes in your flesh to produce the amount of melanin to keep you safe from the ultraviolet rays of the sun. But the so-called white man, he was cursed, man. The Most High cursed the so-called white man, and like I said, that he's even cursed in the eyes of nature. Nature doesn't even like the so-called white man. All right, pursuant to leprosy. So let's go back into Leviticus, the 13th chapter. Okay, let's go back over the 4th verse. It says, if the bright spot be white in the skin of his flesh, okay, and in the sight be not deeper than the skin, and the hair thereof be not turned white, then the priest shall shut him up, okay, 7 days. Verse 5, the priest shall look on him the 7th day after those 7 days, and behold, if the plague and his sight be at a stay, basically if it hasn't changed and it's still in the same condition, and the plague spread out in the skin, then the priest shall shut him up 7 more days. So that's 14 days in all. Verse 6, and the priest shall look on him again the 7th day, and behold, if the plague be somewhat dark. See, that's a clue, brothers and sisters. If the plague be somewhat dark, the plague spread not in the skin, the priest shall pronounce him clean. It is but a scab, and he shall wash his clothes and be clean. So that tells you that his flesh is in the process of healing, because long as he had that case of leprosy, the priest kept him out 7 days, brothers and sisters. After 7 days, the priest will go and examine him, and then if he's still unclean, there's 7 more days, man. And the priest kept doing that until his flesh started healing. So you can see that to have leprosy was not a good thing. Leprosy was not beautiful at all. Like you so-called white people, you love to promote your skin, your visage, your appearance. You love to promote that like it's just something natural. Man, it was strange back in the ancient time to be that color. It was strange back in the ancient world to be classified as the color of the so-called white man. Okay, you was unclean. Okay, because in the beginning of time, all the inhabitants of the earth were different shades of brown. It was not one white man on the face of the earth until Genesis, the 25th chapter, when Isaac and Rebekah when Rebekah gave birth to Esau, he became the first so-called white man to be born in the earth. Before then, there was no white people upon the face of the earth. Okay, so don't be brainwashed through Hollywood when they show you these pictures of Adam and Eve and Noah and his three sons, the flood upon the earth. There was no black, there was a lot, there was no white people in the beginning of time. The so-called white man came through Isaac and Rebekah. When Isaac and Rebekah had a son such as Esau, he's the progenitor of you so-called white people. That's your forefather, okay? Before Esau, there was nobody upon the face of the earth that was known as white people, and that's why it was strange to have the case of leprosy. I'm gonna show you the picture again, brothers and sisters. Anytime an Israelite took upon the case of leprosy, such as you see, they was put out the camp 7 days and however long until they heal. Okay, I just want to show you that pursuant to Leviticus 13 verse 6, the priest shall look upon him the 7th day, and behold, if the plague be somewhat dark, basically that means his flesh is healing now. So that lets you see that the ancient Israelites was also, like I said, brown people, man, colored people, because it said, pursuant to Leviticus 13 and 6, if the plague be somewhat dark. See, that means its healing is no longer staying in that white condition anymore. If it be somewhat dark and the plague spread not in the skin, the priest shall pronounce him clean. If that plague was dark, the priest will pronounce him clean. Long as that plague had a bright spot in the skin, he was pronounced unclean. So when that plague started to heal and become somewhat dark, pursuant to Leviticus 13 and 6, he was pronounced clean, man. And it say he shall wash his clothes and be clean. Now, before we go any further, in the 13th chapter of Leviticus, I want to refer you to a book. This is called The Valley of the Dry Bones, The Conditions of the Face of Black People in America by Rudolph R. Winster. And we're going to look at page 57 concerning the curse of leprosy. Okay? Remember today, brothers and sisters, leprosy is known as vitiligo or albinism. Okay, and this is what you see. That's leprosy. Okay, you see that black guy. His skin is has white spots, bright spots within it. Okay, that's leprosy. Now let's go to page 57 concerning Rudolph Winster in the Valley of the Dry Bones, dealing with the curse of leprosy. There are 3 kinds of leprosies mentioned in the Bible. Domestic leprosy, that's 1, found in houses. Material leprosy, which is 2, found in your garments. And 3, biological and physical leprosy, contracted by human beings, which is in basically genetic leprosy, dealing with the DNA. It says we are only concerned here with biological leprosy. Okay, that's what we're talking about. It says, as I mentioned in my first book, From Babylon to Timbuktu, because he wrote another book, you might want to purchase that one as well. He says in Babylon to Timbuktu, which is pages 24 and 25, the leprosy invariably stated in the Bible showed itself when the skin turns red, but mostly white. It says it is an establishing fact that the Bible always mentions leprosy in the context of the skin turning white because of a disease or in a relationship to some specific wrongdoings. So the Most High punished you with leprosy when you was caught in the act of wrongdoings, some sort of act of wickedness. He would punish you with a disease for wrongdoings, and that was leprosy. Okay. It says, if you don't believe that the ancient Israelites was black, after I explain to you about the leprosy plague and curse, then you are either grossly stupid or you don't want to face reality because it disturbs your deep-seated fixed ideas that you don't want to change. And it says, it is written in the 13th chapter of Leviticus. That's where we are, brothers and sisters. The 13th chapter. That's what we started off with concerning the King James Holy Bible, dealing with leprosy. That's where we at, Leviticus, the 13th chapter. Now, we already looked in the 4th verse, but we'll go back over that 4th verse. As you can see, it says, Leviticus 13 and 4, if the bright spot be white in the skin of his flesh, and in the sight be not deeper than the skin, and the hair thereof be not turn white, then the priest shall shut him up that he have the plague 7 days. So that's the key point that we brought out already. Basically, if an Israelite brother had a bright spot within his flesh, as you can see right here, if he had a bright spot within his flesh, he was pronounced unclean. So there was no white, so-called white people back in the ancient world, man. All right, until the time of Esau. So they claim that white people played a part in this Bible because they set up all these false ass images of these Edomites, but claiming to be the people of the Bible, and it tells you that leprosy is a curse, man. You was unclean to have the case of leprosy. You was set up for 7 days, and when the priest examined you, pursuant to Leviticus 13 verse 5, when the priest looked on you, basically after the 7 days, the priest looked on you the 7th day after those 7 days. He says, and behold, if you was still in the condition, your ass was set up 7 more days. So that's 14 days in all, man. And you kept being set up to that scab on the horizon of your flesh started to turn its original color again. Pursuing Leviticus 13 and 6, and the priest shall look on him again the 7th day, and behold, if the plague be somewhat dark, because that means your skin is healing, then that's when you pronounce clean. Long as you had that bright spot within your flesh, pursuant to Leviticus 13 verse 4 and Leviticus 13 verse 2, when a man shall have in the skin of his flesh arising a scab or a bright spot, if you had that in your skin, man, you was pronounced unclean. That was nothing to brag about, man. And you so-called white people, you love to glorify your pigmentation like it's just some type of beautiful device, when the Bible specifically tells you that it was a curse, man, to have leprosy. It was embarrassing, okay, to have leprosy. All right. So we're gonna keep it moving, man. Page 58. Okay, says, remember that Moses was speaking to the Israelites in the wilderness of Sinai, a part of northeast Africa, like I told you before, brothers and sisters. So the Israelites was in the wilderness of Sinai, which was a part of northeast Africa. No white people didn't write this Bible, man. No white people never played parts in writing the Bible. The Israelites, the prophets that wrote the scriptures with different shades of brown, man. It was a goddamn curse to have leprosy upon you, man. You was pronounced clean. I mean, you was pronounced unclean to have leprosy upon your flesh, man. You was put outside the damn camp. You so-called white man have exalted yourself and brainwashed so many people to get them believe that the Bible resembles your image. But to have the so-called white man pigmentation is a curse, man. We're gonna show you this. But The Valley of the Dry Bones by Rudolph Winston. Page 58, The Valley of the Dry Bones by Rudolph Winston. Moses said in the 6th verse, because we went over that when the priest shall look on him the 7th day, and behold, the plague has become somewhat darker, and it did not spread, then the priest shall pronounce him clean, because the skin is getting darker like his regular or original skin. Moses and Aaron in the 38th verse, which we haven't looked at yet. We're not going to jump the gun. We're going to get to that. We're going to look at the 38th verse to see what's going on. But I just wanted to bring that out dealing with leprosy laws, because we're not going to actually read the whole entire chapter of Leviticus 13, but however, we are going to skip to the 38th verse. All right, so let's skip to the 38th verse. All right, but we will skip to, before we skip to the 38th verse, let's look at the 31st verse in Leviticus 13. It says, and if the priest look on the plague of the skull, and behold, it be not in sight deeper than the skin, and that there is no black hair in it, then the priest shall shut him up that had the plague 7 days. So that leprosy, like I told you, when you got that case of leprosy, basically that scab or that rising of the flesh, it created a bright spot. It created a bright spot within your flesh. And pursuant to Leviticus 13:31, It said if it wasn't no black hair within that spot, then you was unclean for 7 days. Now let's look at Leviticus 13 verse 32. And in the 7th day the priest shall look on the plague, and behold, and the scald spread not. If the scab don't spread, and there be in it no yellow hair, and the scald be not in the sight deeper than the skin, it says he shall be shaven, but the scald shall not he shave. And the priest shall shut him up that he had the scald seven days more. Verse 34. And in the 7th day the priest shall look on the scald, and behold, if the scald be not spreaded in the skin, nor be in the sight deeper than the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him clean, and he shall wash his clothes and be clean. Now, what we're going to deal with is this yellow hair right here. So you can see in Leviticus the 13th chapter, verse 32, it says, in the 7th day the priest shall look on the plague, and behold, if the scald spread not, and there be in it no yellow hair, and the scald be not in the sight deeper than the skin. Basically, it was strange. Basically, when you got a case of leprosy, sometimes you would get yellow hairs in that scald, and we know yellow hair is a curse, man. We're gonna show you later on, but we're gonna put that on hold for right now. So let's look at the main verse that I told you we was gonna get into. Let's look at the 38th verse. It says, if a man also or a woman have in the skin of their flesh bright spots, even white bright spots, such as this. Such as this right here. Such as that. I want you to see that. That's Leviticus 13th chapter and 38th verse. Okay? It says, if a man also or a woman have in the skin of their flesh bright spots, even white bright spots, first Leviticus chapter 13 verse 39. Then the priest shall look, and behold, if the bright spots in the skin of their flesh be darkish white, it is a freckle spot that groweth in the skin. He is clean. So basically, to sum all this up, dealing with verse 38 out of Leviticus the 13th chapter, right here, the 38th verse, speak of bright spots and white spots. A black man or woman with these white spots covering some part of their body is a partial leper. Now what you see right here, this is the perfect illustration for that. That's a partial leper. That means the leprosy having covered the whole entire body. Okay? I'm going to show you something else. These are partial lepers because the leprosy hasn't covered the whole entire body. Those are called partial lepers. Once again, pursuing the 38th verse out of Leviticus the 13th chapter. If a man also or a woman have in the skin of their flesh bright spots, even white bright spots, Leviticus 13 chapter 39 verse, the priest shall look, and behold, if the bright spots in the skin of their flesh be dark as white, it is a freckled spot that groweth in the skin, he is clean. And that's known as partial leprosy. Concerning the valley of the dry bones, page 58, pursuing the 38th verse, speak of bright spots and white spots. A black man or woman with these white spots covering some part of their body is a partial leper. However, once the plague of the whiteness has covered their entire body from his head to his feet, the leper is clean. He has completely changed colors like the albino. The albino was once black, but his hair and skin have changed to white, and his eyes are pink. The people who had leprosy in the Bible are classified as albinos, and these albinos are the only white Hebrews that ever existed in ancient times and were in the minority. The Bible never speaks of a white person turning black, but only of a black person turning white. Therefore, we can conclude that the black man was first on the earth. Other places in the Bible where it mentions that the various people had turned white, it gives you the verses. Numbers chapter 12 verse 10, 2 Kings chapter 5 verse 27. It says leprosy is a disease caused by misdeeds, wickedness, wrongdoings. Deuteronomy 28 verse 15 and Deuteronomy 28. It says verse 58 to 61. Okay. One thing else I want to elaborate on about this topic dealing with leprosy. You so-called black woman, you so-called Negro woman, you so-called primarily you Negro woman. I'm not talking about the Hispanic woman and the Latino woman, the people of Indian descent. I'm talking basically about you so-called Negro woman. We all Israelites, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. We all Israelites, but this is primarily for you Negro woman that like to wear these blonde hair wigs, these blonde hairstyles, want to dye your hair blonde. Okay, this is for you. Pursuing Leviticus, the 13th chapter, dealing with leprosy, dealing with the 30th verse. Let's take a look at that. Adjust the camera. Leviticus 13th chapter, verse 30. Then the priest shall see the plague, and behold, if it be in sight deeper than the skin, and there be in it a yellow thin hair, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is the dry scald, even a leprosy upon the head or beard. So it's just telling you that basically, man, if a man or woman have a plague upon the head or the beard, if they have a plague like a scab or a rising upon the head, in their head or somewhere around their beards, it tells you in Leviticus 13 verse 30, the priest shall see the plague, and behold, if it be in a sight deeper than the skin, okay, and there be in it a yellow thin hair, so to speak. What that's talking about when it says there be in it a yellow thin hair? That's talking about blonde hair, man. A yellow thin hair, then the priest shall pronounce him what? Unclean. And that's Leviticus 13 chapter verse 30, dealing with this yellow hair. So you can see that it was yellow hair, modern day blonde hair is unclean, man. Because when those Hebrews got a skull upon their heads or their beards, if in that skull or that scalp, if that hair was yellow within there, if that hair was yellow, it says the priest shall pronounce him unclean, and he shall be put aside, man, for 7 days. So it's a curse, brothers and sisters, to walk around with yellow hair, blonde hair. Okay, even you brothers, man, with the high top fades, you're doing that as well. Dyeing your hair, you know, you sisters, that's a curse, man. Pursuing Leviticus 13 chapter verse 30, read it for yourself. Speaks of yellow hair as a disease, man. Okay. And like I say, blonde hair is unclean, brothers and sisters. Proverbs 3 and 31 tells you to envy not the oppressor and choose none of his ways. And it says envy not the oppressor. That means you shouldn't try to look like the so-called white woman. You shouldn't try to dye your hair, wear these blonde wigs, these blonde hairstyles. You shouldn't try to look like the so-called white woman, because we know they got that goat stringy blonde hair, and you Negro woman, you want to try to be like that. That's why you wear these blonde hairstyles. You want to dye your hair blonde. Proverbs 3 and 31 tells you to envy not the oppressor and choose none of his ways. Also, Jeremiah 10 and 2 tells you to learn not the way of the heathens. All right. So, man, yellow hair is a disease, man. It's the symptom of leprosy. Dealing with Leviticus the 13th chapter verse 30. Let's look at that one more time. Then the priest shall see the plague, and behold, if it be in the sight deeper than the skin, and there be in it a yellow thin hair, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a dry scald, even a leprosy upon the head or beard. So if you had, in the ancient world, if you had yellow hair within your beards or your head and the skull, that was pronounced as leprosy, man. You was unclean. So please don't dye your hair, brothers and sisters. That is known as the disease, leprosy. All right. So I just wanted to bring that out. Other verses you can look at in the Bible about leprosy is leprosy verses is, let's see, Numbers chapter 12 verse 10, like I mentioned. Let's check that out right quick before we close this video out. Now, this talks about the murmuring of Miriam and Aaron, because basically they got mad because Moses married an Ethiopian woman. This is Numbers chapter 12. Let's start with verse 1. And Miriam and Aaron spake against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman who he had married. For he had married an Ethiopian woman. Now, Ethiopians, brothers and sisters, are modern day Cushites, which are Africans. Those Ethiopians are Cushites in the Bible, better known as Babylonians. Okay, and they are Africans. And Moses married an African woman, a Hamitic woman. Okay, so I guess Miriam and Aaron had something to say about this. Verse 2 out of verse 2 out of Numbers 12. And they said, had the Lord indeed spoken only by Moses? Had he not spoken also by us? And the Lord heard it. So they was making a mockery of the Most High. Numbers 12 and 3. Now the man Moses was very meek above all the men which are upon the face of the earth. Moses was very humble. Okay. Numbers 12 and 4. And the Lord spake suddenly unto Moses, and unto Aaron, and to Miriam, come out ye three into the tabernacle of the congregation. And the three came out. So you had Moses, and you had Aaron, and you had Miriam. Aaron and Miriam is Aaron is Moses' brother. Miriam is Moses' sister. And all three of them came out. Okay, into the tabernacle. So it says, come out ye three into the tabernacle of the congregation, and they came out. Numbers 12 and 5. It says, and the Lord came down in the pillar of a cloud. That's a chariot, a modern day chariot. That's what the Most High came down in, so-called UFO, and stood in the door of the tabernacle, and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forth. All right. Numbers 12 verse 6. And he said, hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I the Lord will make myself known unto him in a vision, and I will speak unto him in a dream. Numbers 12 and 7. My servant Moses is not so, who is faithful in all my house. Who is faithful in all my house. Numbers 12 and 8. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in dark speeches. And the similitude of the Lord shall he behold. Wherefore then were ye not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? So the Most High said, you weren't even afraid to speak against my servant Moses. You spoke boldly. Okay, let's see what's going to happen. Numbers 12 and 9. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against them, and he departed. Numbers 12 and 10. Now pay close attention, brothers and sisters. And the cloud departed off the tabernacle. That chariot, it departed. Basically, it flew off the tabernacle. It left the top of the tabernacle. It says, and behold, Miriam, which is Moses' sister, became leprous, white as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. So the Most High, Miriam was a black woman, okay? Which was Moses' sister. So Miriam was a Levite, man. Moses was a Levite from the tribe of Levi, which are the modern day Haitians. Okay? So Miriam, being Moses' sister, was a black woman. Would be known as a modern day Haitian today. She was turned white as snow, man, because she was murmuring against Moses about marrying an Ethiopian woman. So the Most High, you know what? When Moses' sister Miriam spoke against the Most High's servant Moses about her mixed deeds, he turned her whole entire body white as snow. So if he turned her white, she had to be black to begin with, man.